The controversial crackdown on illegal mining in Stilfontein has drawn widespread attention and brought to focus the plight of illegal miners that are still underground in the disused shaft. Police now say antiretroviral drugs, among other essentials, will be sent to illegal miners. This is in line with the High Court order over the weekend to ensure their safety. Meanwhile, the South African Human Rights Commission is probing allegations that authorities who are part of Operation Valumkoti have infringed on the rights of these illegal miners. Let's now talk more about this with the Commissioner, Nomahlubi Khwinana. Commissioner, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. So last week there was also the inspection that took place Thursday and Friday by the South African Human Rights Commission. And considering that there seems to be somewhat of a change in attitude from government as well as law enforcement around how they're dealing with this particular matter, what does this mean for your investigation and the complaint that has been lodged?
Thank you so much, Aldrin, for having us on your show. Basically, what it means is we must still continue with our work. Our mandate is to investigate any violation of human rights, to protect and even to promote and as well as to monitor. So that being said, that does not stop us from doing that which we are supposed to do. Just this morning, already one of our senior legal officer is on his way to the site to again investigate if indeed the court order that has been meted out is being adhered to by the stakeholders.
Yeah. What is it that the Commission will be looking into when it probes this? I'm just looking at, like, what are some of the terms of references that the Commission would say that these are some crucial aspects that we need to look into? And would comments, for instance, that come from the Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, that we will smoke them out as well as persecute them? And I don't know whether that was the right word or the wrong word or whether the Minister made a mistake, but how would the Commission look into comments of that nature?
Yeah, so the Commission will look at it in terms of its mandate. Remember, Aldrin, anything that has to do with human rights violation, that is within our mandate. And whether it is utterances that have been made, which must be condemned, especially where they are reckless and they have they are in a way violating human rights, definitely those have to be looked at. But from our statement already, we have condemned any actions that could have been done by anyone, which is in line with violating of human rights. But what we look at will be whether human rights have been violated. And the information that is out there is that there was blockage of the shaft. There was a denial of food supplies and water. That is the information that we have. But as Human Rights Commission, we'll then have to investigate if indeed same was done, and obviously collate all that information. And once we are done with our investigation, we'll then have a hearing where people will be required to testify. And we will then have to make a recommendation, having had all the evidence. So at this stage, it is difficult to say that what exactly has been done, except for the allegations that we have heard, and I'm sure that you also have heard about.
Yeah. So with that particular hearing, and not too sure how long that hearing will be taking place, Operation Valumkoti still continues. What would the recommendation from the South African Human Rights Commission be at this particular moment, considering that you still have miners, illegal miners that are underground? Some refer to them and use the word trapped. The government is saying that no, it is not trapped. It is them refusing to come out.
Well, the court order that has been issued by the North Gauteng High Court says that the miners must be assisted in order to leave the shaft, those that are willing to leave the shaft, but at the same time to provide any assistance that is required by the miners. So from our side, we can only but monitor whether same is being done, and that will then allow us to decide as to the way forward. But from our side, as I said, Aldrin, we look at protection of human rights. So if there is violation, then we'll definitely have to act accordingly. But at the moment, what is giving us comfort is the court order that has been issued. And I believe that SAHRC is adhering to the court order by ensuring that anyone who is willing to assist the miners is able to access the shaft. From where we are sitting, we are able to say whether it is happening or not, especially because our officers are also on the ground. So as I've said, even this morning, I was supposed to join the team myself, but I'm not able to because I had to take these interviews. But if time permits, I will probably also be heading that way.
Yeah, I think the other part around this, Commissioner, is the argument that on one end, law enforcement and the police, including the police as well as the South African National Defence Force, have a mandate to carry out, and that is to deal with crime and also to enforce the law. But then on the other end as well is how do you do that without infringing the human rights of individuals? And again, going back to the comments that were made by the Minister in the Presidency and now also the Northwest Police Commissioner, is that the people who are underground are criminals.
Well, as I said, the utterances that have been made, if they were reckless in any way, we have already said that if they are reckless utterances, those we condemn. With regard to the fact that people might be tempted to be criminals that are underground, obviously the law enforcement will have to investigate if a crime has been committed. And if indeed it is so, then obviously they'll be brought to book, and the court will then pronounce on their criminality of their actions. But at this stage, it would be wrong, or it would really be amiss of me to immediately assume that everyone that is underground is a criminal, especially because there's a lot of narratives that are out there about how people have gone into the shop and without us having investigated, it is very difficult at this stage to pronounce and say for certain this is the situation. So that is why we are saying for the minister or even any law enforcement officials, it is important that they carry out their mandate, and at the same time they protect human rights. They do not violate them in the process. I know it can be difficult when one is dealing with this type of a situation. It's a very delicate one, but that does not mean that in the process of it, one must still not observe the protection of human rights.
If we look, for instance, at international conventions around inhumane or degrading treatment of human beings as well as punishment, including torture, and I know this is a bit of a stretch, Commissioner, but I beg for your indulgence here. At face value, with the information that is available and what we know of right now, is there a possibility that what the police and the SANDF have done here also has a prima facie case that amounts to torture?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to say. Aldrin, obviously, from where we are, this is information that we have received. But at the same time, as the Human Rights Commission, we also work more like the court. So we require evidence. We do not just require on hearsay evidence. We'll still ensure that we get to the bottom of the entire aspect of this matter.
Okay.
And then at that time, we'll be able to pronounce. It will be very reckless of me at this stage to say that indeed there has been violation of human rights without having investigated the entire process.
Yeah.
So, Aldrin, if there is violation of human rights, you can be rest assured that as Human Rights Commission, we will act accordingly. But I must just say to you, Aldrin, we as Human Rights Commission, we sit in a very tight place because our recommendations, once we have made them, the courts are saying that they're not really binding. And that is why we have actually taken the matter wherein the court has pronounced so in the Supreme Court of Appeal to the Constitutional Court, where we hope that our powers will be defined and they will be able to act accordingly.
Yeah, and that's a matter to be heard, of course, before the Constitutional Court. Thank you so much for making time for us. Commissioner Nomahlubi Khwinana, and that last point that you make there, do you believe that the Human Rights Commission has the same powers to make recommendations, binding recommendations, like those of the Public Protector, which is also a Chapter 9 institution?